Hey, wrestling fans, this is the headliner Chris Michaels, and you're listening to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling.
All right, humanoids, thanks for coming back to the Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling podcast. Now it's time for someone who actually knows what it's like to take a bump, knows what the canvas feels like, and I've always heard they have a unique smell as well, and that is the headliner, Chris Michaels. Chris, are you there?
I'm here.
Chris, I hear that you're a fellow Kentuckian like myself.
Absolutely.
All right, well, see, there you go. Jimmy, are you... Okay, we've had one guest, I think, so far who didn't have that Southern drawl.
Right.
Or no, I'm sorry, we had two. Evil East and maybe Flynn, right? Flynn Hendricks.
Yeah, Flynn
those are the two, I think. Yeah, he probably does. Well, I kind of say Warsh and stuff still, too. But anyway, Chris, I know you and Jimmy go back a little ways, so I'm going to let him kind of take the reins on this one.
Sounds great.
All right, sorry.
I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no, we appreciate you being here, but I'm sorry I got to throw you into his hands now.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It's okay.
To start off, Chris, you are one of the people that if I were to say, let's draw a pro wrestler, you would draw Chris Michaels, the headliner Chris Michaels. Now, you've been Chris Comet, you've been High Flying Chris Klein, you've been all kinds, but you are Franklin, Kentucky's own Chris Michaels. Now, I met you in I think it was either for Byrd, one of Byrd's shows for USA Championship or Saw. I can't remember, one of the two. But you started way before that. Now, when I met you, I think it would have probably been 2011. So you had already probably been going for 20 years at that point. Am I right about that?
I started in late 89.
Okay, so even 22 years. Gotcha. Okay, so talk about that, man. Talk about your start.
Growing up, my dad worked all the time. He was hardly ever home. It was just me and my mom. And we would get up on Saturday mornings and would catch Saturday morning wrestling, which would be the Memphis stuff with Jerry Lawler and Lance Russell, Dave Brown, all those guys. And that's kind of what I grew up on. And then, as I got older, got into sports, I played a lot of baseball and was all into that. So I kind of quit watching it for a bit. But once I got around, 14, 15, 16 years old, Saturday evenings, I got to watching Crockett's, Ric Flair, Sting, Rock and Roll, Arn Anderson, Four Horsemen, all that stuff. I'd watch that before I'd go hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
And then that's when I think is Wrestle War 89 came to Nashville.
Yeah.
And my stepmom gave me and my stepbrother tickets to go see it. And that's when Flair and Steamboat had that last match for the world title, and Flair took it back. And that right there kind of intrigued me to want to do it. And then it was just a few months after, met a girl in my homeroom who had just moved there from Texas, said her dad was a pro wrestler and was going to open up a wrestling school right here in Little Franklin, Kentucky. And I went to my mom and I'm like, what are the odds? I'm like, this is a thing.
Yeah.
And then it took off from there.
Yeah, now I've actually heard that story before because you've been a guest on my other show, Live and in Color with Wolfie D. So what's funny is you and Wolfie D were both at that show. Did you know that Wolfie was also at that Wrestle War 89?
I did not.
Yeah, he was there too. So you're the second person that I know for fact has been to that show. So that's pretty crazy. Now you got going pretty quick. So in 89, you start, but then in 91, I'm seeing you're already wrestling people like Eddie Gilbert and people like that, man. So you got it pretty quick, apparently.
Yeah, well, I was just a few months in, and there just happened to be a promoter named Dale Mann out of Jamestown, Kentucky, who was running Bowling Green, Kentucky every Sunday night.
Yeah.
And back then, I got brought up there to watch the show a few times or whatever. And that's when Dale Mann was bringing in a lot of Memphis guys. Like I remember seeing Dustin Rhodes there. You remember Black Bart?
Oh, yeah.
Bill Dundee, George Weingroff, the Sheik, like all kinds of names and top talent. And the global Dallas, Texas thing came about when I started up there for Dale, and I'd had a series of matches with Barry Horowitz, and he's the one that got me on the global Dallas Sportatorium shows where I got to work Eddie Gilbert, and I think the other match was against Doug Gilbert as the Dark Patriot.
Right.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So global, man, I remember seeing that on TV. I'm not saying I saw your specific match, Chris, but global was all over TV. I remember that era, because WCW, there was a lot of stuff on TV at that point because it was not necessarily the end of the territories, but it was coming up on that time. You had global on there, but it seemed like Smoky Mountain and USWA were also heavily on your list around that same time too. That was kind of the dream, right? I mean, wrestlers getting to work multiple quality promotions. I mean, tell us a little bit about that, man.
Well, USWA came about. So I can't remember exactly. Somehow I got introduced to Eddie Marlin. And at that time, I was living in Glasgow, Kentucky with my son's mom. We wasn't even married yet, but Eddie Marlin was running the Glasgow National Guard Armory. And I think he got wind there was a local wrestler there. It was me. And he would come meet me and hand me posters, and I would go hang them up for him. And then, of course, he would book me on the show. And that's how I got started that early with USWA. And it'd be a short time after, of course, the Dale Mann days, I had already met Todd Morton. And that's when we put the tag team together of Far Too Wild and started working for Burt Prentice up in Indianapolis. And then we sent pictures to Eddie Marlin, and that's when we came to USWA as a tag team. Yeah. Now, the Smoky Mountain thing was through Tracy Smothers, which Tracy Smothers helped train me. So when he got to Smoky Mountain, he wanted to bring me in as his little brother for a tag team. Right. He had me trying on the Rebel flag gear and all that, but Cornette said he loved the idea, but he just needed Tracy as a singles wrestler. But, of course, I still got booked anyways.
Right. Tracy, we could do a whole show about him, could we not?
Right.
So saying some of these names, and obviously I'm familiar with those. And the one thing that you mentioned that kind of perked my ears a little bit was the Texas Sportatorium out there. Now, I've heard on other podcasts from other wrestlers and things that it had a very distinct feel and aura about it. Can you talk a little bit about that venue, and then maybe compare a little bit of some of the other like venues that you've worked in? Talk about the difference between working that venue compared to, say, an armory, compared to, say, something else like a TV taping or something.
Well, at that point in time, I'm just a 16-year-old kid. I had no idea the importance or the history or the, whatever about the Dallas Sportatorium. Sure. To me, it just seemed like a old, dirty building dirty, dusty locker rooms, and the series of benches that walked down to the ring. And, of course, it wasn't full like it was in the world-class days. But back then, I just didn't know exactly where I was at. And, of course, today I'm like, wow, I've got that notch on my belt. I got to work Dallas Sportatorium.
That's
but back then, I didn't know how important it was or how what an honor it was to be there.
Sure. No, I understand that. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, since we're talking about buildings, I talked to Wolfie D, and of course the Mid-South Coliseum is Wolfie's Madison Square Garden, right? Is the Louisville Gardens your Madison? What in your opinion is your Madison Square Garden?
Well, always growing up, of course, the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum, I'm like, wow, I'm here. I'm where I watched it on TV as a kid, and then I go out and I'm like, when you watch it, from the mid 80s, the place is sold out. But when I'm there, it's like a third of the people. And I'm walking out to the ring and I'm like, where's the people at?
Yeah.
But, I'm like, but this is freaking awesome. I'm in this building.
Yeah.
I guess I would say the Louisville Gardens is pretty special to me. Because, that was another famous one. And I had a lot of series of matches there, more so than I did in Memphis. When I was doing some of the extra spots where it was WWF or not WWE, one of my matches with Haku was in Rupp Arena in Lexington. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah,
I've been there for a couple of basketball games. That's a hell of a building.
Yeah, and I actually saw my favorite band Kiss there too. So
excellent.
I thought that was pretty awesome.
That is very cool. So you've wrestled there where excellent basketball is played, and at the same time, the biggest rock band in the world has played. So pretty good company, Chris. So you got up to the point of you and Todd working in a tag team, which if I were to describe Far Too Wild to someone, I would describe it as if Bobby Eaton and Ricky Morton put a tag team together. Obviously, Todd being the Ricky, you being the Bobby. Do you feel like that's close at all? You all were so daggone tight with each other too. Your work, you couldn't see through it, not a bit.
Right. And, it's funny actually when I talk to Todd here and there every now and then, I still always apologize to him because I was still so young and inexperienced. Here I am in the USWA, the promotion that I grew up watching, and I'm being presented on TV as a tag team, like a main spot. And then I end up USWA tag team champion. We beat PG-13 and beat the Harris brothers and all that. And I just couldn't get a grasp of it.
Right.
And I tell Todd that I'm sorry. I think I cost us maybe some longevity down the road because I didn't look at it as long term.
Right.
What I saw, what cut us short is that houses were so down that we were getting the bare minimum pay, driving all these hundreds of miles, and I'm barely bringing any money home, and I'm gone all the time.
Right.
But I'm like, well, shit, I can go back home. I've got Thursday, Shelbyville, Tennessee. It was Friday, Beaver Dam, Kentucky, Saturday, Central City, Kentucky, and then Bowling Green on Sunday. I'm like, I get 4 days a week. I'm home every night, and I'm making more money. I might not be on TV, but I'm still wrestling, and I'm making more money. That's how I was looking at it.
Right.
I wasn't looking at it as being where I was at, and that TV exposure, might have helped me get a lot larger paydays down the road. I was just looking at now that I needed the money now. And that's why it ended up getting cut short.
It's funny, like the responsibilities and necessities of life can sometimes stop you in your tracks. You're going to be a man about it. You're going to say, look, I've got a son, I've got a family to take care of. I got to go with the right now versus the possible bigger future, you know?
Yeah, you know, you don't know what the future holds.
Right.
And trust me, if my bank account would have been full at that time, I would have stuck it out.
Right. Because you didn't get paid for going to TV, right? Working Memphis TV. A lot of people think, you know, you get paid to work Memphis TV. You don't, right?
No, it was Monday, Memphis, Louisville, Tuesday, Evansville, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday was usually somewhere in Mississippi and Arkansas, Saturday morning TV, Memphis, and then Nashville Fairgrounds at night, and maybe Sunday off.
Yeah.
Then right back out.
Right.
And at that time, houses were down, so you were getting the bare minimum pay of $40 a night.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
That barely cover your travel, especially to Mississippi.
Right. And you're
sometimes me, Todd, Jamie, and Wolfie were raiding the ashtray for change to get a Happy Meal.
Man.
And I'm like, we are tag team champions, and we're raiding for change.
Right, right. So not exactly in that time, because that's a little more in your future. But in 94, though, some different opportunities came knocking. And that was with the letters WCW. And you can go on YouTube right now and see several of these matches where you worked Vader and you worked Harlem Heat as a tag team with Far Too Wild. And then you actually worked Stone Cold Steve Austin. Of course, he was stunning at that time. You worked Lord Steven Regal. Now, when you were there, obviously you were there as an enhancement talent, as they call it now. But what was your in for WCW?
I was Rip Rogers and Tom Morton.
Okay. There you go. Yeah. And was there ever, you know, as a tag team with Far Too Wild, was there ever a promise of, I'm not necessarily a promise, was there a hope of anything further at WCW, or was it just kind of take what you get? It is what it is.
It was kind of take what you get. I only teamed at one time with Todd, and I was hoping that something would come of it, but somehow I'm not sure who pushed for it, but they put Todd with a guy named Joey Maggs as a tag team.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
And tag team. And, you know, they got quite a bit of publicity at that moment.
Yeah.
Three of those names, you know, that, I mean, well, all of the names that Jimmy, you know, threw out there, but the three big ones that jump out to me, obviously, is, you know, Steve Austin, Vader, and Regal. Out of those three guys, was there ever an intimidation factor? Because, I mean, Vader's huge, you know, and everyone else, you know, and Regal can just pretzel you and stretch you any way he wanted to. So was there any kind of like intimidation factor for you? And also, can you talk a little bit about like how it was working with those guys?
Well, the day I worked Vader, I was at the gym that day and I seen him running on the treadmill. And I'm like, God, he's huge. I said, I pray I never get a match with him. And sure enough, that night I got him.
I don't know what's more unbelievable, seeing Vader on a treadmill or that timing.
I went to Rip and I said, I can't do this. You're going to have to get me out of it. I'm not wrestling him. He's going to kill me. And he said, oh, stop it. You'll be fine. Just listen to him. I'm like, no, he's going to kill me. I tried like hell to get out of it. But you know what? During the match, he took care of me and was real nice with me and did not hurt me in the least. And after the match, he took me back to Jody Hamilton and he gave me a big hug and he said, you done great, kid. That was a good job. And he said, Jody, this kid done good.
That's
and
awesome.
Was as nice as he could be to me.
Yeah.
I always heard he was a really good guy.
Yeah.
Did you know Harlem Heat from anything before?
No. Back then I thought they were pretty rude.
Well, gotcha.
Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha. They were still working under different names, I think, at that time. It was like Harlem Heat, but it was their old
Texas names, right? From
the Texas names. But anyway, gotcha. I don't want to speak ill of them, but maybe they were in a mindset that young, promising people are sometimes prone to get, especially if they've, you know, heard a lot of good things about themselves and they kind of maybe, you know, treat others like crap, you know, maybe that's
big head syndrome.
Yeah.
Well, I was just a young, skinny, you know, pale white kid, not much muscle tone or whatever. And, these were huge guys and just jacked to the gills. And, they didn't see any reason why they should give me any offense or anything. And, I was nothing to them, and they're getting their big push. I mean, I get it. But at the time, I'm like, man, these guys are mean.
So who were you the most? I mean, obviously you had a good story about Vader there, but you worked Stone Cold or Stunning Steve, and you worked Lord Steven there. Out of those, was the Vader the best interaction overall for you?
Well, Austin is pretty short and sweet. I went up to him and I said, hey, Steve, I said, I'm the guy you got on the next taping. He said, oh, okay, cool. He said, I'll just call it out there. Don't worry. He said, don't worry about it. I won't squash you. And I said, okay, fair enough. And, he was as professional and easy as can be and gave me some offense and, short, easy match. I was like, just straightforward and simple as could be. He was awesome. And Regal, I had several matches with him there. And with him, it was easy, and he would be in the back and he would go over stuff with me, and he would show me how he was going to get me in certain holds and everything. And he gave me some offense and stuff. I actually had Regal's tryout match back for the WWF.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
He was going to be the man's man or something. I remember
a real man's man. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got USWA in your belt right there. Okay. And then you've got Global in your belt. And then now WCW, you've worked some shows for them. But let's talk about Smoky Mountain, because you basically rode Smoky Mountain until there was no more Smoky Mountain, right? You were there for a good long run, but at the same time, they kind of ran out of steam a little. That's when I first saw you wrestle. And I don't know if you ever remember me coming up to you at Saw, and I was like, hey, man, I just wanted to let you know that I remember seeing you on Smoky Mountain. And you were just like, all right, dude, I'm figuring out this match in my head. Leave me alone. No, you weren't like that at all. I'm just kidding. But I didn't want to bug you too much because, the veterans are doing their own thing. You had Wolfie in one corner. You had Reno in another corner. You had you in another section. You had Doug Gilbert, all these different legends in that scene. And, to me, I was just like, I don't want to bug him, but I also want to say, hey, dude, I remember you from Smoky Mountain and stuff. So how did you feel about Smoky Mountain?
Oh, I loved it. At the very first, I was given my very first match in, wrestled a guy named Jeff Daniels.
Oh, yeah. I love Jeff.
And we had all this stuff laid out and was telling Cornette about it. And he said, guys, can you do it in 4 minutes? And I was put over, and I was called Chris Comet then because I reminded Cornette of a young Bobby Eaton, of course.
Yeah.
But he never really brought me in for the singles thing. Well, I was brought in and out and just used here and there when needed. But there was this one specific TV taping. I thought I was well on my way. He would do 3 to 4 TV tapings a night. And the first TV taping, I was with tag teaming with some other guy against the Heavenly Bodies.
Oh, yeah.
And the match went, I get in, I do offense with Jimmy Del Rey and Tom Pritchard. All offense for me. I tag out, boom, they beat my partner. Well, the second taping was they had me do a promo with Robert Gibson. And he said, you're going to be my partner tonight. We're going for the Smoky Mountain Tag Team titles. If you keep your ears open and your mouth shut, maybe you and I can just could be tag team champions tonight. And so,
there you go.
So the second taping, I'm teaming with Robert Gibson against the Heavenly Bodies for the Smoky Mountain Tag Team titles. Well, that ends up being a DQ. Well, the third taping, I get a singles match, and it's a match to put me over.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, oh, man, I am on my way now.
Yeah.
Well, the next set of I do all the house shows that month, and book 3-4 days a week. I'm working with one or the other headbangers. opening match or I'm with Dr. Tom Pritchard opening match.
Yeah.
So the next set of TV tapings, it's like something went wrong. I was just used as enhancement again.
Huh.
And so I'm on this last loop of just, house shows. And the last show was Johnson City, Tennessee. And I get the booking sheet for the next month and I am nowhere on. And so I left there kind of like dumbfounded. Instead of going and asking, hey, what's the deal? I just like tucked my tail between my legs and drove from there. And I like boohooed all the way home. But it ended up being a blessing in disguise. That very next month is when checks started bouncing, and that's when they folded up.
Oh, geez. Yeah. In hindsight, obviously you dodged a bullet there, but that's gotta be, almost heartbreaking, backbreaking and things, when you see something like that. But, so talk a little bit, like, I guess, as someone who's never been in the business at all, Jimmy a little bit there and yourself, obviously, do you think that that's something that's a politic thing? We always hear about politics backstage, or do you think it was just we didn't need you and they saw the writing on the walls, so they went ahead and just kind of cut ties, or what do you think happened there?
It's kind of hard to speculate. I really don't think it was anything, ill towards me or anything negative. I mean, I was busting my tail on those house shows with the Headbangers and Tom Pritchard. And I really believe, especially Tom Pritchard, if he didn't like working with me, he wouldn't have worked me that much. And he would have had me going before, any of that happened.
Sure,
I just think maybe they were just trying to take a look at new talent and, see if anybody stuck out or whatever, then maybe they would have came back to me. I don't think it was anything negative. It's just,
just kind of is what it is, huh?
Yeah. Just timing. And I think he was just, I think he was taking a look at Flash Flanagan at that time too.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. That's another name, just all-star working dudes, working sons of guns, and I think I've heard that with your name so many times, Chris. It's almost like it's your, you're the headliner, the working son of a gun, Chris Michaels. So I don't want to go away from Jim Cornette too long. We're going to talk more about Jim and some Al Snow and stuff like that. You end up at IWA Mid-South after Smoky Mountain. You working for Ian there. And then you end up, basically back in Nashville. You were working North American All-Star Wrestling, which did it basically morph into Music City? Is that how it worked, essentially?
Anytime in between like USWA, Smoky Mountain and all that, I always went back to Dale Mann.
Okay. Yeah.
Because he was always busy. He ran Georgetown, Kentucky on Sunday nights, and he would always have a Friday and Saturday. And I would always hit up Shelbyville, Tennessee when I could on a Thursday. So I still getting, 3-4 days a week then. And, it wasn't until about 97, I think, is when Music City Wrestling started. And
gotcha. Okay.
I eventually got back in touch with Burt Prentice because he managed me and Todd in USWA.
Right.
And he used me on a house show, packed out place in Westmoreland, Tennessee. And I worked with Brickhouse Brown.
Oh, yeah.
And we tore it up. And Burt asked Brick, he said, yay or nay? And Brick said, yay. I want to work with him myself.
That's awesome.
And so he brought me in, and I pitched the idea to Burt. I said, hey, since this is a new TV, a fresh start and all that, let me get away from this Michaels name and use my real name and, build something with it. And he said, no, can't do it. Everybody already knows you as Chris Michaels.
Yeah.
I'm like, it was shit.
That's the proper response.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and take a quick break real quick. When we come back, we're going to continue talking with the headliner, and we're going to get a little bit more into some of the more, I guess, current work that you have done, and continue with these great conversations here on Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to lostwrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
Join me, Gene Jackson, for the Jackson Interaction Podcast, where I'll be doing one-on-one interviews with people from the world of professional wrestling, as well as stand-up comedy. You can get them anywhere podcasts are available in both video and audio form, but you can find them all at genejacksonpod.com.
All right, we're back with the headliner, Chris Michaels. Chris, real quick here, we were talking about your start in your early days, and then you stayed local in Kentucky and went to the OVW territory and did work there and did a lot of training. Now, real quick question, was that when Les Thatcher was still around at that point? Was it Al Snow? Who was kind of running things then? And give us kind of the lowdown of what your time was like there.
My old partner Sean Casey hit me up for OVW, and it was Jim Cornette in charge at that time.
Okay.
And Danny Davis.
Yeah, he was the original Dangerous Danny. I had to take the moniker later on.
What's funny, hey Chris, I had Dean Hill read the commercial for our podcast. So Dean actually named Dan Dangerous Dan. So that's coming by it honest, right? I mean,
right. That's awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
I know. I was like, holy crap. Okay, I'll take that. Yeah.
yeah. Because Dan's the kind of guy, he gives everybody a nickname. So I'm the professor because I'm trying to come up with all the specifics on stuff. My brother, he's an action figure guy, so he's the Plastic Sheik. Dan was like, I can't make up a nickname of my own, and we just never came by it naturally. And so Dean Hill actually created his nickname. So it was perfect.
Oh, badass.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I was like, okay, I'll take it. Okay. So Cornette was there at the time and Danny Davis, you told us how you got in there. What was it like there? And tell us about some of the things that you got to experience and had to do while you were there.
Well, my very first night in for TV, I wrestled Sean Casey on TV for the OVW light heavyweight title, and I win. And,
good debut.
So, yes. And so that feud with Sean Casey carried on for about a whole year of going back and forth with the OVW light heavyweight title. So now we got these other guys coming up, and Cornette's needing them to work with some steady talent that, been around the block for a little bit. So
Sure.
he decides to turn me heel and team me and Sean Casey together. And that's when we start working with Shelton Benjamin, Brock Lesnar, Batista, John Cena, Randy Orton, all those guys.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we were swapping them in and out as tag teams, and we were working with them. Now, of course, in between, like we was working with the Suicide Blondes, Jason Lee and Derek King.
Oh, yeah.
And like they built us up for at the Louisville Gardens one night, they had a NWA World Tag Team title tournament, and we came down to the last match with Bag Company. It was Rick Michaels and David Young, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
And we put them over, but we done some other stuff. But our main deal was working with those guys I just mentioned and getting them some ring time and some critique after the matches.
Now, I remember seeing I went to only one OVW produced event when I lived in the area, and it was one of the Pillman Memorial shows. But I did get to see the Leviathan, Dave Batista, and the prototype John Cena wrestle back then. So who knows? I might have actually seen you wrestle at one of those events, even, I guess, maybe.
Chris, I remember you and Sean Casey were bitter enemies. And then, Sean is working with Randy and you're like, I'm going to work you by myself. I'll work a handicap match. I don't care. My partner's in the back, but I don't need him. I'm me. And so you're going in, and then of course, Sean turns on Randy, and then you guys are a tag team at that point. So, I know that's a little more specific about the history of your time there, but I got to ask this question. Who out of all those guys had it, obviously, and who did you think was never going to make it, but did?
I guess out of any of them, if I had to pick somebody that I wasn't for sure they got it, or because I didn't think they were that smooth or fluent in the ring, y'all gonna think I'm crazy, but it was John Cena.
Yeah. I thought you might have said that, actually, because he came from California for Rick Bassman's promotion, and Samoa Joe started there and stuff like that. But then he comes to OVW, and I think they saw a lot of money in him, right? I mean, they were probably had a few hopes in him, if I'm not correct, right?
Right.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you worked with Randy Orton. How about that? Did you see a lot in Randy? Did he get it? Obviously, a third-generation talent there, or?
I thought Randy had it from day one, and I always liked his attitude. He was willing to learn, and, was always picking mine and Sean Casey's brain. And I thought he had it from the get-go.
Yeah, when it comes to Randy, I've always thought when he was younger, when he was with OVW and now current incarnation, if you could, and I know this has been said on TV before, so I'm kind of stealing a line, but if you could build a professional wrestler, a current modern day professional wrestler, he's kind of the blueprint, isn't he? I mean, he just seems, like you said, he gets it. He knows how to play the crowd. He knows how much he has to do to really get the crowd's reactions. He just seems like if you're going to build a franchise around someone, Randy's the kind of guy to do it with.
I think he's the absolute best.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people say that, that he's the absolute best, but talk about this. I don't want to just put you on the spot here, so I apologize, but talk about the hard times that kind of OVW was as well. It wasn't all, you were getting over and you're winning titles, but it wasn't satisfying, really. I mean, as far as from some of the guys you see coming in, especially the contract statuses and stuff.
Well, the only downfall was the pay going up there. It was a little chump change, but it was on a Wednesday night, and you're getting TV exposure. Now, at the time, I didn't know how good a TV exposure I was getting, but it was getting me quite a bit of press, and I was getting some bookings off that TV. So It really did pay to be there, and, of course, to be aligned with all those names, especially after all these years, the ones who became mainstream superstars, and to say I had a hand in with them, has really put a good notch on my belt.
Absolutely, dude. And it's totally makes sense too, because, there's a popular phrase right now that everybody says about giving something to somebody while they're living rather than memorializing them after they die. And that is give them their flowers. And, you're the one of those guys that any day I hope you get your flowers as much as possible, my friend, because honestly, you're one of those guys. I mean, even the Nashville guys like Plunkett and Dyron, they call you dad in Nashville, and it's done as a
term. What the hell happened? I'm still used to being called kid.
Kid, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Man. And then now all of a sudden I'm being called dad. I'm like, what happened in the middle?
There ain't no middle, man. Time flies, brother.
Can I not just be uncle or something? So 2000 OVW you started, and then that ran through 2002. And if you were at OVW at any time to be there of any kind of renown, you were there at that time. I know it's still continuing on with Al Snow to this day and these things, but in 2001 there was a big change in the wrestling industry. Talk about that from your perspective when one of the big two goes away. Talk a little bit about WCW's demise at that point.
Well, that was what kind of pushed me and Sean Casey out the door there, is because they had all these guys released and they needed somewhere to send them. So they sent a bunch of guys to OVW, and Cornette was forced to do something with them.
Yeah.
And so our bookings up there became less and less. And me and Sean Casey were bugging the shit out of Cornette, like, hey, what's the deal? We'll work with these guys. And he's like, you don't understand. He said, these are just green jacked up kids, and I don't want to get you guys hurt.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't have any room anymore. He said, this was all dumped in my lap and I have no choice.
Right.
And that's what me and Sean Casey had come up with, is that's what pushed us out the door, was the WCW stuff.
Yeah.
That's a damn shame. But, did you get to work with any of the WCW guys before that happened then, before they came to the invasion angle stuff, I guess?
No, I don't think me and Sean ever laid eyes on any of them.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So it was like, we've got to move you guys out to make room for them. Literally. It was,
really?
Yeah, it wasn't like you're tagging them in. It was, you didn't even see them essentially. Gotcha. Okay. So tell me a story about the Minnesota stretching crew. Can you, the Shelton Benjamin and Brock Lesnar. I mean, exactly. Dan and I, if we were a tag team, I would be crapping my pants and Dan would be puking in a bucket, and we would both be scared to death because those guys are monsters.
Jimmy, I wouldn't have even shown up, buddy.
So I would be doing it by myself. Thanks, Dan. Chris, you would have helped me, right? I hear stories. I heard an interview with Kamala one time, and he was talking about wrestling against Andre. It was almost like a bear. It was like an animal strength. Was Brock in control? I know you'd worked a little with Leviathan, and Cena was no joke. But when you get with Brock, was he in control of his strength, being that he was a great, amateur wrestler, or was he a little out there too? Talk about that team for just a minute.
Shelton Benjamin listened and wanted to learn, and was very easy and smooth to work with. Brock, he just didn't get it. There'd be some things he'd question us on, and then Cornette would tell him, shut the hell up, listen to these guys. And at times it was like running into a brick wall. And I would always have him press slam me. And of course, I didn't have to give him no help at all.
I was going to ask. Yeah.
No, he was as strong as anybody could be. I really don't think he was aware of how strong he was.
Yeah.
Now, so Jimmy said there's three names: Leviathan, Dave Bautista, John Cena, and Brock Lesnar. Who was the strongest out of those three that you worked? I mean, is he really a freak?
Freak times 10.
Yeah. They always talk about him hunting. I'm like, does he even use a weapon? Does he? I kind of imagine he just sits in a tree, drops on the moose from above, grabs it by the antlers, and just wrecks its neck and just drags it back home.
Yeah,
probably close.
Yeah. So Wolfie tells me a story on the podcast sometimes of, he's getting angry because Jim Ross is like, hey Wolfie, we're looking at you. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. And he's on TV and he's smacking himself in the head with the microphone trying to get color because he wanted to get color in this promo. Well, he can't get color, so he keeps smacking himself and they go to black essentially. And apparently he gets ticked off about it. And as he's going to the back to get at Jim, just behind the door is Brock Lesnar. And Wolfie apparently kicks open the door, and it very easily, he said, could have knocked into Brock Lesnar, and he said he was so glad that did not happen.
I remember that incident a little bit.
Yeah. So, okay, during this time, as well as the WCW guys coming in, you were actually making some, time up in the WWF. You were working guys like S.A. Rios and, as I've heard, the human Vegematic, Haku. Talk about that, man. Because you were working on Jacked when that was a show. Talk about working with S.A. Rios. Talk about working with Haku a little bit.
Well, yeah, all the spots for WWF then came through OVW. And I was on the road full time with Tracy Smothers at this point. And my busiest years was 2000, 2002. And this is when me and Smothers would sometimes have 2-3 months without a day off.
Oh, man.
What I do is they had WWF magazine. We go look the magazine and look at their upcoming dates. And if they were in driving range at all, I'd call Jim Cornette up and say, hey, can you put me and Tracy on Monday and Tuesday and such and such and such and such? And he'd say, yeah, let me call Kevin Kelly, see if they don't have it full yet. And then he'd call me back and he'd say, yeah, you are booked. And so that's how we were landing a lot of these. And there's a funny thing about S.A. Rios is at that time, Tony Gurria, one of the agents, was putting together the card for Jacked. And when he would see me, he'd say, oh, yeah, Chris, you work well with S.A., right? Yeah. Okay, you working him. I always felt I felt like I had an angle going on with S.A. Rios on Jacked, but the finish was always the same, a moonsault.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much all anyone remembers S.A. Rios for. I think that and introducing Lita.
Yeah. Lita was with him.
I don't think Lita was with him at that point. This was after.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
What about Haku? I got to just say, you've worked some tough dudes through your whole career. You're rolling with a tough dude in Tracy Smothers. I mean, talk about Haku, though. I mean, I know it was one match, but is there anything you brought from that match?
Oh, when we were laying out the match, he was making it very, very competitive, like giving me a lot of stuff. And Tony Gurria came by and asked what we had, and he said, sorry, Haku, you can't. You need more offense. And so we had to cut a lot of mine out. Sure. And he just kept saying, I'm sorry. But he worked well with me. The only thing that was really stiff and snug, of course, were his chops. Yeah. But other than that, he worked well with me. And I told him when he gave me a big boot, I told him I could take this pretty bump throughout the bottom rope out to the floor.
Right.
And he said, yeah. And we did that spot, and it came off great, and he loved it and thanked me for taking it for him. And he was great to work with.
Yeah, I always heard that he can be a scary monster of a human being, but it sounds like he's one of those guys that if he knew that you were you're working for him, you knew what you're there for, respectful of you for the business and everything else, that he sounded like a pretty decent dude though. Oh,
he was awesome. He was amazing. Yeah. Very good. It wasn't like he already knew me and knew that I could go. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, how does he know who I am? Yeah. And if I'm good enough? And it really threw me for a loop.
Yeah,
that's awesome to feel that respect like that.
You also weren't a drunk guy in a bar messing with him. That's usually, it seems like, the stories about Haku. At that point, Haku had worked as the Faces of Fear. He had been the Islander. He had been King Haku. And now he had come back after the WCW closed, and he's got this huge afro. He's wearing the genie pants kind of thing. And he doesn't look like the Haku of old, but he did have a pretty cool look. But I do remember that spot. Ladies and gentlemen, just type in Chris Michaels Wrestling on YouTube and just pop some popcorn, maybe crack a cold one.
Give me a hell yeah!
And just chill, because you're going to watch some incredible wrestling of Jerry Lynn. I mean, a million different people. But yeah, watch that Haku match for sure, because that spot, that bump you took there was incredible. And so at that point, is that part of kind of your offering to guys, is like, hey, I've got the ability to take this bump or do this certain spot for you to make you look like $1 million? Are you developing that reputation at that point, you think?
I kind of wanted to get my name out there and all that, but the opportunities just came to few and far between for anybody to say, hey, use this guy, he'll take a hell of a bump for you. Yeah. It just didn't really get to take off.
Yeah. So at that point, obviously we've gone through OVW. You've wrestled all the Avengers and the superheroes and everybody from DC and Marvel. And then obviously you're working a ton in the Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky. I mean, all over really, but specifically in the Middle Tennessee, you really have a good long run with USWO and Tony Falk. Tell us a little bit about being there at the start of that for him.
Well, Jay Stevens just sent me a match of mine and his for the USWO heavyweight title I'd never seen before.
Yeah.
From the stadium in there is a 45-minute long match. And I would say it's in as many times as I wrestled that guy, I think that's at least in our top 5. I absolutely loved it. And I'm waiting for my son to give me feedback on it now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think it said it was 2006, I think.
Yeah.
And, it was some good stuff.
You guys were killing it. And you guys, to say that match is in the top 5 of your matches. So what's funny is Chase wasn't necessarily working at the Millersville Saw at the time that Chris and I were working together, but Chase would oftentimes come visit the guys. He wasn't working a show that night or whatever, so he would come hang out in the locker room, as would Jerry Lynn, as would Derek King, as would anybody really that was in the area. And I hate to say this, man, but I would sometimes turn around and see Chase there, and I would be like, "Hey, Chris, oh man, sorry." And he would be like, "It's okay. Everybody does it." So at that same time, you guys don't really look alike, but you both have this kind of, I don't know, it seems off topic, but kind of like this rock star look. You've got the long hair, it's blonde. You guys gotta have this like rock star kind of swagger about you. Do you feel like you and Chase are maybe brothers at some point in a past life, or?
Well, he'll tell you when he got his start, he's seen quite a bit of my jacked matches and stuff.
Yeah.
And he fell in love with I had on motocross boots.
Yeah, right.
And,
right.
Now, he did notice that I was taking some different bumps other than some of the other guys, and he took a liking to me, and his first set of gear, he went out and bought those same boots, just a different color, and said that he, kind of wanted to emulate me.
Yeah.
And as far as the whole bandana thing, yeah, I wore a bandana like probably about the same time he was wearing one. I probably wasn't wearing mine exactly like his, but yeah,
Sure.
We kind of developed the same dress code over the years, and look like we're a tag team or brothers or whatever. Like sometimes somebody calls me Chase, I'll say, "Don't you cuss me." Yeah, we've gotten that a lot. We just have the same taste in everything.
Yeah.
Same taste in music, clothes, style of wrestling, and wrestling gear, colors even. We just have the same taste in everything, it seems like.
Right. And, Rotto's Rivergate. I remember hearing a lot. We won't get into all that. But, so obviously you and I meet while we're working at Saw. The funniest thing is one night you were working, and I think it's got to be Kevin Weatherby. And, Saul was picking up some good little steam right in there. I remember Victor and Tasha were managing you. Victor is going to be a future guest on the show. Think the world of Victor. And, you guys were getting some heat. I was working with Plunkett and Haskins for them. I was managing Dyron some. You, however, were working Kevin Weatherby in a First Blood match, maybe. Does this sound right? Or you were just going to get color? And for some reason that night, and you may have pounded a tall boy or two, we won't need to say that, but you could not get color at all whatsoever. And you were, was it Kevin that was having the issue, or was it you? I cannot remember. Do you remember any of that?
I want to say I think it's Kevin, because there's where I had that cage match with the ladder in it with Chase, and I bled like a stuck hog. And then we had the tables, ladders, and chairs match. I bled like a stuck hog.
Yeah.
That the old timers say, 2 BC powders and a couple of beers, and you'll bleed all night long.
Yeah.
And that was my motto on that. I want to say it was Kevin having the issue.
You're probably right, because I do remember you bleeding quite often, and it didn't seem to be an issue. So I think you're right. I think Kevin probably just didn't want to go down far enough, right? Maybe.
Probably wasn't shown properly.
Yeah. So you were one of the best wrestlers in that scene. And I will say that, as a manager, I will say that as not only a gimmick, but also real life, you were known as one of the guys to be in a match with, to put in a program, if you're a promoter, you want to have the title or be in a program. At that time, though, were you getting any looks from anyone? Like, was TNA trying to talk to you? Were you talking to TNA? Anything like that at that point? Or were you just kind of riding the outlaws, as they say?
I did TNA in 2002, and that also was short-lived. Me and Rick Michaels
right.
did a pay-per-view with Storm and Harris for the tag titles, and then we were supposed to do a thing with Chase and Cassidy as the Hot Shots. Well, Rick Michaels ends up getting hurt, and they dropped the whole tag team thing together. I was brought back for a couple of singles and then never brought back. But as far as then, I was just kind of riding it out.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So, I told Dan about this. I was like, Chris Michaels, headliner, longtime veteran, known him, great guy, is willing to come on the show. And then he's like, okay, awesome. I'm liking it. Keep going. And then I perk his ears really when I start to talk about your time and experience at the Performance Center, and especially one of the teams that you really, you found a liking to, and also probably helped quite a bit. So start us off by talking about the Performance Center and the options you got there, and then maybe talk about a certain 2.0 or something to that effect.
My son always does my emails, and I'm sure he had told me he reached out to them, but I didn't remember. But I remember he hit me up and he said, call me 911. I thought something was wrong with him or one of the grandkids.
Oh, no.
And he's like, you're going to Orlando. I'm like, we're going to Universal Studios? He said, no, you're going to the Performance Center and all that. Well, I go, and this first go around, the classes and everything was kind of more structured or whatever. Like, I had to be in so-and-so's class at a certain time and the other so-and-so's class at a certain time, and then help go over film with certain ones and this and that and the other. There was kind of like a schedule. Now, the second go-around, it wasn't so much. It was me and Kenny Dykstra. We just kind of floated around and helped out when needed and when we could. But I think those 2.0 boys, they had remembered me from somewhere and talked to me quite a bit. And we were watching film, and I critiqued one of their matches and so forth. I just saw them not long ago. I went to the AEW show at Municipal, and cool. Me and Chase did, and we were kind of talking with everybody about maybe taking a look at us as a tag team.
Oh, that would be excellent. Oh, man. I'm getting fired up.
Yeah, I can. I don't know. They've got a pretty good tag team right now called FTR. That would be a hell of a run, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Those boys are badass.
Yeah, they are. Absolutely. They if they don't make whatever Hall of Fame you throw people in at the end of it all, then it's not valid at that point.
Yeah. So this is the obligatory question we always ask everyone on every show, and it's normally Dan asking it. But we are admitted fans of Danhausen. Dan loves him pretty much all the way around. I appreciate certain parts of his character, and especially what I think he could be. What is your thoughts on Mr. Hausen?
I just don't understand what he is or what he's there for.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the guy wrestle. I I mean, I guess every show needs a character of some kind or whatever.
Sure.
Doesn't matter if he has wrestling talent or not.
Sure.
I guess it seems that he's pretty over for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't knock him. I just don't know what it is about him that everybody likes. Myself, I don't get the gimmick.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest issue, man, is they are counting on people, not to denigrate you at all, Dan, but they are counting on people like you to love him already, and there's no story to him. There's no, I mean, they could start over with his story if they wanted to. He came out of a cave in Transylvania if you want, whatever.
Something. Yeah, I agree. They need to, I mean, everyone that's a big fan of Danhausen picked it up from indies or the internet or his blog or his vlog rather. But you're right. I think they need to work on developing the mythos, the whole story of who he is and why he looks like he does and what he does and why he curses people and so on and so forth. I think if they did that and if they did it right, it could be one hell of a gimmick and a run for him. I mean, they have a dinosaur wrestling for him. So, I mean, how could, I really think that they could make Danhausen work, but I think you guys are both right. I think that it needs to be, and Mike Jablonski, I know you're listening. I think you're all right where you say there needs to be some explanation behind that character.
Totally. So, okay, if you had Danhausen, Chris, what would you do with him?
I don't know.
He's hugely over, you've got some sort of internet kind of buzz about him, my theory, and I'm trying to lead you into answer my question, Chris, but I think he would make a great manager. Now, again, I know managers aren't bringing home the paydays that the guys in the ring are, and that's understandable. But at the same time, I feel like seeing him as a manager, almost like a evil Jimmy Hart. I know that's big name to put him with there, but something to that effect that could kind of bring out that element and not require him to, almost like a newer Father James Mitchell. And again, I know that's big shoes to fill, but I don't know. I could see him more as a manager, but we'll get into that another day. So,
I've seen him pop off from underneath the ring and show up in precarious spots or whatever. I guess, he pops out from under the ring and then, that causes a distraction. The dude gets rolled up, finish 1, 2, 3. Or, you know what I mean? He ends up being a distraction, but not just for a certain guy or whatever, just different matches where they're like, right. What the hell is he and what's he doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the zany kind of mystery behind him, but as we record this last night, AEW had their Blood and Guts show, and basically he's in a program with Billy Gunn's kids, and now he has to wrestle those guys and a member of the Acclaimed, and he brings out FTR to wrestle with him, and I'm like, look, I love FTR and I love Danhausen, but how in the hell are these two oil and water groups or gimmicks, how are they going to work? And it's like, is he just the guy that roams around the back now and just like, hey, I'll make you a deal or this or that? Like you guys said, what are we going to do with him? What's the direction with him? That's what really blows my mind.
We could talk about Danhausen another time. This is Chris Michaels episode. So Chris, obviously we thank you so much for coming on the show with us.
Oh, tell me about it.
Whew. One of the biggest things that I want to put up. Oh, of course, man. But I want you to talk a little bit about Indestructible. Now, the reason I was able to ask you a lot of these questions is A, I know you. B, I know people who know you and have talked about you a lot, whatever. But I actually bought your book about a year ago on Amazon, which it's available. Link is in the notes of this show right now. And you can also go to Chris's social media pages, which I'm going to ask you to tell it in just a second, Chris, that you can get one autograph straight from him. But talk about your book, man. Dude, you wrote a book, brother.
Yeah. it's just from knowing certain people, luck of the draw. My lawyer knew a guy. My lawyer's talking to me about Tracy Smothers' book, and I just made a joke, and I said, boy, could I write one? Ha, ha, ha. And he said, well, I can make that happen for you. I'm like, you kidding me? He said, no, I really can. And he told me what to do, get the notebook, just write it all down, and take it from there. And it took me about a good year to finish it, believe it or not, as small a book as it is. But, I just wrote what came to mind and what I could remember and what happened to me and how I remembered it and the time frames. And I went from there, and it got rewritten, of course, with better punctuality in English. But it happened relatively quick, and I'm very proud of it, and, blessed to say that, hey, I wrote a book.
That's awesome. I barely read a book within a year. So, I mean, that's, for you to be able to write one within a year, brother, that's pretty damn good. I'm impressed with that.
Well, I bought it once I heard about it, obviously. And then when I bought it, I read it within a week, and, it's just a really good quality book, and it's a quick read, but it's not a short book per se, but it's a quick read because you don't put it down. That's what I enjoyed about it. So definitely buy Indestructible. I would say buy it from Chris to get that autograph, right? That's the best way to get it.
Absolutely.
Hey everyone, this is Shane from Insane Shane's World. I release wrestling figures of enhancement talent, mid-card wrestlers, and wrestlers that you never thought would have a figure available. So if you are interested in adding a really cool and rare figure to your collection, then don't hesitate to contact me at shamtheman73@gmail.com. That's SHAM theman73@gmail.com. You can also join my Facebook group. Just search Insane Shane's World.
This is the Big Picture, Michael Jablonski. Don't forget to tune in every week to Jablonski's Pissed Off on the Mike Jablonski's Pissed Off YouTube channel.
The Buckfrog in the sport, he's gonna tell you all about it. He doesn't care what you think, you're gonna hear all about it. Mike Jablonski, he's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski, he's so pissed off. Mike Jablonski, he's so pissed off. He's pissed off.
Chris, before we let you go for the end of the show and such, so Jimmy knows, I've been a lifelong wrestling fan, and I've had the opportunity to meet a few wrestlers, but it's usually hey, how you doing? Snap a photo. Hey, this, that, or whatever. I did deliver a diamond cutter on a friend of mine in a concrete parking lot in front of DDP once, but that's nor here nor there. I always relish the opportunity to ask pro wrestlers a few questions that I always had as a kid or whatever. And if you don't mind, I'd like to rapid fire you a couple quick questions, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah, Dan, that's your pro wrestler. Hell yeah, Dan, that's your pro wrestler. Hell yeah, Dan, that's your pro wrestler. Hell yeah, Dan, that's go Dan.
First and foremost, who is your favorite pro wrestler of all time?
That would come in a couple of categories, because as a really young kid growing up watching it, then it was Jerry the King Lawler.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
And then right before I got started and all, it would have to be Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Sure. Woo. Makes sense. Okay. Next question. When you first started in the business, did you get to, how did you come up with your ring name? Obviously it's, some promoters will give you something or whatever. Did that happen? Did you get input on your name?
The Chris Michaels name came from the promoter I started out with named Dale Mann. He always did a parody of names and tag teams and such. Like he had a junior Rock and Roll Express, and that was Todd Morton, and his name's Rick Valentino, but he was called Rick Gibson then.
Yeah, sure.
And
Okay.
he stuck me and another guy together named Ronnie Travis, which he was supposed to be kin to Billy Joe Travis, but he said, Chris, we'll call you Chris Michaels, and because we wore the zebra skin colors and bandanas and stuff, and he said, we'll call you guys the Young Rockers.
Nice.
So that's where Michael came from.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Makes sense. And so I guess last question would be, first of all, you've had a hell of a career, and I believe workers like yourself that can be called, I guess, a good hand or the working man or the journeyman or whatever you want to say. I believe you and that class of wrestlers absolutely should be heralded because, for example, we may not get 20 years of John Cena if it wasn't for people like you. We wouldn't get, X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be, because of people like you and what you do. So first and foremost, as a lifelong wrestling fan, thank you so much for being that enhancement talent or that behind the scenes guy that makes those people every week. I honestly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate that. But my question is, well, you're welcome. But my question is, I guess, what do you want going forward? What do you want to still do in the business? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? Do you want to train? Do you want to start a promotion? Do you want to, one more match? What do you, at this point, what are you thinking?
Several things, I guess. I'm 49, pushing 50.
Okay.
But I train every day as if I'm going to get a call tomorrow, and still try to look the part and be in shape and have nice gear and all that. At my age, I know I'm at the tail end, and it's a young man's sport now. But to me, that gives me reason to get up in the morning and all that, saying what if and all that. I would still like to work with quality talent. I would like to branch out of Kentucky, Tennessee, and hit some other states up, get my name out there again, work some different states and different talent and so forth. But I'd say the end game, I don't know. If I had the money, yeah, I would love to start my own deal and do things my way. Yeah,
that'd be awesome because you've seen the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it, in your career time. And I think there needs to be a lot more the right way to do it out there.
Now, as far as training people, I really think my patience level was not there for that.
Sure.
Also, my daughter is 16 years old, and she has more of a passion for it than I do, or maybe ever have, and she's dying to break into the business.
Okay.
So I would say I would love to help her get her start, too, as well. I wanted to go to a good quality school or whatever. I don't want Joe Blow down the street just because he has a ring, working with her. I want her to work with a good quality school who could promise her steady work or to be looked at when she's done.
And good safety, good safety training and working. Yeah,
absolutely. Push your socials, brother. Where can they find you?
I have the typicals. I have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I think they are all under. I think Facebook is just under Chris Michaels, and Twitter and Instagram is under Chris Michael 73.
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll have that information in the show notes as well for them, Chris, so they can get a hold of you through there. Man, Chris, definitely appreciate you coming on, brother. We'll get you on in the future and maybe watch some of those matches we talked about with us or something like that. So really appreciate you making time for us, buddy.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I'm truly grateful.
Yes, brother.
My last question would be, are you a Cats fan or a Cardinals fan?
College?
Yeah, we'll be in from Kentucky. Do you root for Louisville or UK?
Man, I don't root for no college teams. The only sport I watch is the NFL.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
And
Well, who's
that's
your team? Where you're at, then you got a couple of choices. Who's your team?
Man, I can't tell you. You're going to laugh at me.
No. Go ahead.
And this has been since the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
The Cowboys.
I wasn't a 90s bandwagon jumper. Yes, the Dallas Cowboys.
All right.
knew that.
Well, if you're old enough to remember when they weren't a bunch of pansies, then that's okay with me.
That's awesome.
That's all right. I was a Tampa fan for a long time, so I understand sometimes when people laugh at you.
Yeah.
Right. Me, of course, my son followed in my footsteps, and we've been talking about we got to find us a new secondary team to cheer for.
Yeah.
And he's something that he's going to root for the Chargers this year.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a Bengals and a Tampa fan, so I almost got to see him. I don't know what I would have done if I'd got to see him this year in the playoffs. So I'm glad it didn't happen.
Right.
And I'm always going to be tighten up, baby. So we'll go with that.
All right. So as we wrap things up, we definitely want to thank Chris for being on the show. It was amazing. We'll see if you go over Jablonski here to hold the podcast title.
Yeah.
When everything pans out.
If I can't beat Jablonski, maybe it's time to call it a day.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, great. We started some heat. Jimmy, go ahead and throw out the socials and the thank yous. Go ahead and get your shit in, kid.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for coming on. Of course, we're Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling Podcast. We're at GMBMPW on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Like Chris said, he's at Chris Michael 73. Go buy his book. That's the important part. So
Absolutely.
we thank you. Yeah.
Just hit me up, man. I'll get it to you.
All right. Thanks, Chris. See you, buddy.
Thank you so much.
With a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life.
We'll see you later.
This has been a James Rock Street production.